Ryan's office revenge.
Hot metal burned through my shirt and into my chest. The aluminum can bounced off me and hit the concrete floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the break room. For a second, nobody moved. The vending machine hummed its eternal tune. Someone's radio crackled with dispatch codes from the loading dock. Then I felt the liquid soaking through my work shirt, still warm from sitting in Wade's delivery truck all morning under the blazing sun. My name's Roger Brenner, but everyone calls me Rocky. I'm 49, been working the floor at Apex Manufacturing for 15 years now. Used to be a combat engineer in the Marines until an IED blast in Fallujah messed up my left leg pretty good and ended that career. These days, I supervise production lines and make sure safety protocols get followed. At least that's what I'm supposed to do when I'm not running personal errands for the plant manager's girlfriend. Wade Phillips stood there holding his empty hand like he was still gripping something. His girlfriend Crystal was examining her perfectly manicured nails like nothing important had happened. She'd been complaining about the energy drink I brought her for the last 5 minutes. Wrong brand, apparently. The vending machine had eaten her dollar and only dispensed what was actually available, which wasn't the premium stuff she'd specifically requested. "You worthless piece of garbage," Wade said, his voice low and mean. "Can't even handle a simple request from a guest." I pressed my hand against the wet spot, spreading across my chest. The drink was some generic energy brand, nothing special, but it had been sitting in Wade's delivery truck since early morning. Must have been 95 degrees outside already, and that truck had been parked in direct sunlight for hours. The aluminum can probably hit 120 degrees easy. My skin stung underneath the soaked fabric, a sharp burning sensation that cut right through the shock. That's when I noticed Beverly Walsh standing in the doorway with her entourage. Our CEO, she'd been conducting a facility tour for some potential investors, showing off our operation, our safety record, our management practices. Her eyes went wide as she took in the scene, the brown stain spreading across my uniform shirt. Wade's arm still raised from the throwing motion. Crystal shrugging with boredom like this was everyday entertainment. Beverly's heels clicked on the concrete floor as she walked toward us. Each step sounded deliberate, final, like something important was about to end permanently. But let me back up and explain how we got to that moment. This whole mess started about 3 months ago when Wade began bringing Crystal around the plant during her lunch breaks and after work. She was maybe 28, always dressed like she was heading to some upscale restaurant instead of a manufacturing facility. Wade would parade her through different departments, introducing her as his operational consultant or efficiency advisor. Complete nonsense, obviously. Translation: I was about to become her personal errand runner. Within the first week, I found myself handling tasks that had nothing to do with production supervision, fetching specific drinks from the break room vending machine because she didn't like walking that far, adjusting the temperature controls because she complained about being too warm or too cold, moving equipment around so she could find somewhere comfortable to sit and observe our workplace dynamics. Meanwhile, my real responsibilities kept piling up like parts on a broken conveyor belt. Quality control reports needed reviewing. Safety inspections required completion. Production schedules demanded constant adjustment to meet shipping deadlines. The kind of work that actually mattered, that kept the plant running and people employed. But none of that seemed to register as important anymore. My team started asking questions pretty quickly. Jimmy Torres, who supervises the packaging line, pulled me aside after noticing I'd been absent from the floor for most of a shift. "Rocky, what's going on? You're never around anymore. We've got quota issues, and I can't get approval to adjust the schedule." Pete Rodriguez nodded along, concern clear on his weathered face. These guys had families depending on steady work and consistent production. They needed me supervising operations, making sure quotas got met and safety protocols stayed tight. Without proper oversight, accidents happened. People got hurt. Products didn't ship on time. I told them Wade had assigned me some special projects. Temporary stuff that would wrap up soon. They looked skeptical but didn't push further. What could they say? Wade was upper management with the authority to reassign personnel however he saw fit. I was just a floor supervisor. In manufacturing, you follow the chain of command or you start looking for another job, but the demands kept escalating. Crystal wanted me to drive across town during lunch hours to pick up specific snacks she'd seen advertised. Wade would point at his phone and say, "Crystal needs this handled immediately." Never asked, never said please, just expected instant compliance. My actual responsibilities, the ones involving million-dollar equipment and worker safety, became secondary priorities to whatever Crystal wanted at any given moment. I kept telling myself the situation would resolve itself naturally. Wade would eventually get tired of showing off for his girlfriend. Crystal would find some other way to occupy her time. This was just a temporary inconvenience I had to endure. I was wrong about all of it. The situation escalated week by week, finding new ways to make me feel small and insignificant. The breaking point finally came on a Tuesday morning in late July. Wade strutted through the main entrance with Crystal hanging on his arm, talking loudly about leadership techniques and operational efficiency theories. She carried a list written on expensive stationery paper, the kind you'd use for wedding invitations. Energy drinks, protein bars, some specific brand of imported gum she'd read about in a lifestyle magazine. All items supposedly available from our break room vending machine area. Handle this priority list, Wade announced, thrusting the paper toward me. Crystal's conducting an observational study of workplace efficiency patterns today. I glanced at the wall clock, 8:15 a.m., peak production time when every supervisor needed to be on station. My team was already running behind yesterday's quota due to a mechanical issue with the primary assembly line. Jimmy had already flagged a quality control issue that needed immediate attention. Pete needed approval for overtime scheduling to catch up on delayed orders. But Wade was staring at me with that expression that made it clear my paycheck depended on keeping Crystal satisfied, regardless of actual production needs. So I walked away from my real job and headed to the break room, left my safety clipboard on my workstation, ignored Jimmy's confused look when I passed his station without stopping to address his concerns. Told Pete we'd have to discuss overtime approvals later, even though the deadline couldn't wait. The vending machine area felt like enemy territory. Ancient equipment, half the selection buttons permanently stuck, change mechanism that jammed every third transaction. I fed dollar bills into the slot and listened to my radio crackling with production updates I should have been handling personally. Line 3 was running slow. Quality control had flagged another batch for inspection. The kind of problems that required immediate supervisor attention, but Crystal's list demanded priority. Energy drink, specific premium brand. The machine display showed that selection was sold out, had been for 2 days according to the maintenance log. I tried the alternative, some generic brand that looked similar and tasted roughly the same. The machine dispensed it without issues, still cold from the refrigeration unit. I brought it back to where Crystal was holding court near the main production floor entrance. She accepted the can without acknowledging my effort, took one small sip, then made a face like I'd handed her liquid garbage. "This is completely wrong," she announced. "The flavor profile is nothing like what I requested. The label design is ugly. How am I supposed to study workplace efficiency when staff can't execute basic instructions?" Wade examined the can with theatrical disappointment, then looked at me like I'd personally insulted his intelligence. Something shifted behind his eyes. The fake friendly plant manager persona disappeared. Now he just looked angry and humiliated in front of his girlfriend and the production crew. "Fix this immediately," he commanded. "Machine's empty of that brand," I explained, keeping my voice level. This was the closest available substitute. "Maintenance restocks twice weekly. Next delivery is Thursday. I don't care about your excuses or maintenance schedules. I care about meeting reasonable requests from guests touring our facility." The situation was escalating beyond logic. I'd done exactly what any rational person would do given the circumstances. The vending machine had limited inventory. I'd provided the best available alternative. But Wade seemed determined to make this into some kind of power demonstration. I reached for the can to take it back. Maybe try another machine in the administrative building, or check if we had emergency snacks stored somewhere. That's when Wade grabbed it from Crystal's hand and threw it directly at my chest with deliberate force. The impact knocked the breath out of me for several seconds. Hot liquid soaked through my uniform shirt immediately. The aluminum can hit my sternum hard enough to leave a mark. Real physical pain, sharp and shocking, like grabbing a live electrical wire. I couldn't speak initially. Just stood there processing the fact that my supervisor had just assaulted me over vending machine inventory. People around the break room had stopped what they were doing. Jimmy Torres stood frozen halfway through reviewing a quality report. Eddie Kowalski from the union was getting coffee and witnessed everything. A couple guys from second shift who'd come in early for overtime. Everyone watching, waiting to see what happened next. Crystal examined her fingernails with studied indifference. Wade set the empty can down slowly, deliberately, like he'd just demonstrated something important about workplace hierarchy. That's exactly when Beverly Walsh appeared in the doorway with her group of potential investors, 3 men in expensive business suits, carrying clipboards and folders, here to evaluate our operation for some kind of expansion partnership. They'd been touring the facility all morning, reviewing our safety protocols, examining our worker relations policies, assessing our management practices. Now they were watching our plant manager physically assault a floor supervisor over an energy drink flavor preference. Beverly moved across the room with controlled precision, the kind of calm that meant someone was about to lose their job permanently. She guided me toward the utility sink without saying a word, turned on cold water, handed me clean paper towels from the dispenser. Medical kit, she said to the room. Iddy Kowalski was already moving toward the emergency supply cabinet. She helped me rinse the sticky liquid off my shirt and skin. Her movements were efficient, professional, but her expression showed barely contained fury. When she turned to face Wade, every person in that room understood something fundamental had changed. You're suspended immediately. Hand over your security badge and facility access card. Wade tried to laugh, but the sound died when he noticed her expression and remembered the investors were watching every word. Beverly, this was obviously a misunderstanding. Rocky accidentally bumped into me and the drink slipped from my hand. I looked at him, then at the distance between where he'd been standing and my position, looked at the trajectory the can had traveled through the air. Nothing about that throw could possibly be characterized as accidental. The force, the aim, the wind-up motion he'd used. Badge and access card, Beverly repeated. Her voice could cut through steel plating. Wade fumbled with his credentials, hands visibly shaking now. The confident plant manager from 2 minutes earlier had completely vanished. Security personnel appeared like they'd been monitoring the situation, ready to escort him off the premises without letting him access his office or touch any company property. At the urgent care clinic, the attending nurse documented everything with professional thoroughness. Second-degree burns on my chest and left shoulder where the hot liquid had penetrated the fabric. She photographed the injuries with a digital tablet, zoomed in on the red, angry marks where the heated aluminum and contents had made contact. These burns will need cleaning twice daily with antibiotic ointment, she explained. Printing treatment instructions. Follow up in 48 hours if there's any sign of infection or if pain levels don't decrease. She provided printed copies of everything. Photographs, medical assessment, treatment recommendations, work restriction guidelines for HR purposes. I photographed the documents with my personal phone and emailed copies to my private account immediately. Evidence has a way of disappearing when powerful people feel threatened. Back at the plant, word had spread through every department faster than a safety alert. Iddy Kowalski found me in the parking lot when I returned from urgent care. Brother, what happened in there was assault, plain and simple, he said, his weathered face serious. Union's backing you 100% on this one. He handed me a business card from his wallet, attorney who specializes in workplace violence cases. Maria Santos. She's good, wins her cases, doesn't back down from corporate intimidation tactics. The card felt substantial in my hand, like it carried real weight. Beverly called my personal phone that evening while I was applying ointment to the burns. No pleasantries, just direct business communication. You're on full paid medical leave effective immediately, she said. Focus entirely on medical treatment and document absolutely everything. Photograph the healing progression, save every receipt, every medical instruction, every follow-up appointment. Her tone was precise, like she was giving tactical instructions. If you choose to pursue legal action against Wade personally, the company will provide full cooperation. I can recommend attorneys who handle workplace assault cases professionally. Workplace assault. Hearing that phrase out loud made everything concrete in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't office drama or a supervisor having a bad day. This was criminal assault, something that belonged in police reports and courtrooms. The threats started arriving the next morning. Unknown phone numbers sending text messages. You made me look incompetent in front of investors. Another message from a different number. This could have been handled quietly if you weren't so stubborn. Then a voicemail arrived from Wade's actual phone number, his voice attempting casual friendliness, but sounding increasingly desperate. Hey Rocky, let's be reasonable adults about this situation. Accidents happen in high-stress work environments. Don't destroy your career prospects over spilled beverages. Call me back so we can resolve this professionally. I saved everything methodically. Screenshots with timestamps, audio recordings, detailed notes about when each message arrived. Every threatening communication got forwarded to my personal email account with contextual information. The fear was genuine. He had my address, knew my schedule, could show up anywhere. But underneath that fear, anger was building like pressure in a boiler. He still believed he controlled the narrative, still thought he could intimidate me into silence through veiled threats and appeals to my supposed career concerns, still operated like he had power over my future. Building security confirmed what I'd hoped to hear. The break room was covered by 3 different camera angles with full audio recording capability. Everything was preserved in digital format, automatically backed up to secure servers. Eddie sent a carefully worded text message. Footage has been locked for legal review purposes. Nobody can delete or modify it now. That's when I could finally breathe properly again. Real evidence existed. Technology doesn't develop convenient memory gaps or change its story under pressure. 2 former Apex employees reached out through private social media messages within 48 hours. Both had quit the company months earlier under different circumstances. The first sent documentation of Wade publicly calling floor workers domestic help during a client presentation, complete with email evidence and witness statements. The second attached a photograph that made my stomach turn, a purple bruise covering most of his forearm and a broken hand tool where Wade had thrown it during a production dispute. I didn't file any reports, he wrote. Needed steady employment. Had mortgage payments and family obligations, but I'm not afraid anymore. If you need official statements for legal proceedings, you have my commitment. My attorney, Maria Santos from the firm Beverly recommended, reviewed all the evidence with methodical precision. Multiple witness statements, clear video documentation, medical records, threatening communications, pattern of abusive behavior. This case is exceptionally solid, she said with grim satisfaction. He chose the wrong person to assault. Company lawyers called within a week, using carefully diplomatic language about moving forward constructively and resolution that benefits all parties involved. They offered a settlement package barely sufficient to cover medical expenses, wrapped in a non-disclosure agreement thicker than most employee handbooks. Generous compensation for an unfortunate workplace misunderstanding. Their representative explained during the phone conversation, misunderstanding. That single word made my blood pressure spike dangerously. I examined their offer closely. Liability waivers, confidentiality clauses, mutual agreement never to discuss the incident publicly. Everything designed to protect Wade's reputation while purchasing my silence permanently. I reviewed the paperwork one final time, then slid it back across their conference table. No, the room atmosphere changed immediately. They'd obviously expected me to accept whatever they offered and disappear quietly. Instead, they encountered someone who refused to be bought off with inadequate compensation and silence agreements. We can provide additional time for consideration, their lawyer suggested hesitantly. No, I repeated firmly, I don't require additional time. This offer is insulting and completely inadequate. 1 week later, someone leaked edited security footage to a gossip website. Strategically chopped video segments from 2 camera angles, edited to make Wade's throw appear clumsy rather than deliberate. No audio track, just visual confusion designed to support an accident narrative. Online comments immediately branded me as dramatic, an attention-seeking employee overreacting to a simple accident. The character assassination was swift and effective, but Maria filed an emergency motion requesting the complete unedited security footage be admitted as evidence in legal proceedings. The real video with full audio revealed everything clearly. Wade grabbing the can, stepping back deliberately, winding up his throwing arm, hurling it directly at my chest, with obvious intent and force. Most importantly, the audio captured Wade's words immediately before the assault. Watch this demonstration. 2 words that proved premeditation. Proved this was calculated assault rather than any kind of accident. Crystal contacted my attorney's office with an unexpected message. I cannot continue participating in this deception. She provided a voice recording from the morning of the incident where Wade could be heard bragging to someone over the phone. Time to teach some respect for authority around here. She'll witness proper workplace hierarchy today. He'd planned the entire incident. Premeditated assault disguised as workplace discipline. The energy drink complaint was just an excuse he'd been waiting for. Beverly quietly ordered a comprehensive forensic accounting review after my incident. Something about Wade's expense reports had troubled her for months, and now she had justification to investigate thoroughly. The audit results were devastating. Weekend trips to resort destinations billed as client meetings with clients who didn't exist. Gift cards purchased through company accounts but never distributed to employees. Hotel accommodations, expensive restaurant meals, entertainment expenses, all personal, all fraudulent, all meticulously documented by Wade himself. The fraud investigation merged with my assault case, creating a much larger problem Wade couldn't explain away. It wasn't just workplace violence anymore. It was assault plus embezzlement plus abuse of authority plus witness intimidation, a pattern so clear that nobody could ignore it. His attorney attempted to argue the investigations were unrelated, but they weren't. They demonstrated exactly who Wade was fundamentally. Someone who believed rules didn't apply to him personally. Someone who took whatever he wanted and hurt whoever interfered with his plans. The company's insurance provider got involved next. They refused coverage for someone who'd committed systematic fraud against their own employer. Wade's legal protection vanished layer by layer until he stood completely exposed. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nervous tension. I sat in the witness chair, right hand raised, promising to tell the complete truth. The judge reviewed the unedited security footage on a large monitor. The entire courtroom watched Wade's deliberate throw, heard my sharp intake of breath, witnessed me standing there burned and humiliated while everyone else remained frozen. When my turn came to testify, my voice shook initially as I described the heat, the pain, the shame of everyone witnessing the assault without anyone offering help. I talked about burns that required weeks to heal properly, anxiety attacks that struck whenever someone approached too quickly, the way I still instinctively checked escape routes in crowded rooms. The defense attorney tried creating doubt, suggesting I was exaggerating symptoms for financial compensation, asked why I didn't simply quit if working conditions were truly intolerable. But Maria demolished those arguments with medical documentation, witness statements, and video evidence that couldn't lie. When the verdict arrived, liable for assault and battery, I didn't cheer or celebrate. Just breathed one long, shaky breath that felt like releasing pressure built up for months. Wade's attorney muttered about filing appeals, but I'd won. The court officially declared that what happened was wrong and that I deserved justice. The appeal got filed predictably, but our judgment was immediately enforceable. Wage garnishment froze Wade's bank accounts. His luxury truck disappeared from parking lots. The downtown condo went up for sale with desperate price reductions. OSHA fines arrived next, thousands of dollars in safety violation penalties. Then criminal charges from the fraud investigation. Theft, embezzlement, falsification of company records. Each charge carried separate penalties that accumulated like compound interest. I didn't gloat or send threatening messages or celebrate publicly. Just existed peacefully while natural consequences played out exactly as they should. Karma didn't require my assistance. Friends occasionally asked if I felt guilty watching Wade lose everything, but I hadn't thrown anything at anyone, hadn't stolen from my employer, hadn't assaulted someone weaker because I could. He'd constructed this disaster personally, brick by brick, choice by choice. I'd simply refused to remain silent about it. Beverly offered me a new position, plant safety coordinator, real authority, actual budget, my own office with windows, and my name on the door. Build the policy framework you wish had protected you, she said simply. I drafted comprehensive zero-tolerance policies for workplace violence, mandatory training for every employee about assault, harassment, and abuse of authority, a confidential reporting system managed by external investigators, not internal HR, where people feared retaliation, clear consequences outlined in writing. Violate these rules, lose your job immediately. At the company-wide meeting, I presented everything without shame or embarrassment. Explained why these policies mattered critically, why silence protects abusers and punishes victims, why everyone deserved safety at work. Security escorted Wade through the lobby months later to collect his final personal belongings from storage. A cardboard box containing the last physical evidence he'd ever worked there. Nobody said goodbye. People looked away or suddenly became intensely interested in their phones. He walked past my office, my nameplate clearly visible without looking up. A letter eventually arrived at my house one evening, 2 sentences of lawyer-written apology that felt like ashes, empty gray, meaningless words. Not because he understood what he'd done or felt genuine remorse, but because someone advised him to send it for legal reasons. I placed the letter beside the burn ointment I no longer needed. My skin had healed completely. Pink scars remained, but they were fading gradually. Visible reminders that I'd survived, fought back, and won. This entire ordeal started with a single energy drink, wrong flavor from a broken vending machine. But it concluded with policy changes, criminal charges, financial justice, and a life I could respect myself for living. Through everything, I learned something crucial. Silence protects the wrong people. Speaking up might be frightening and complicated, but it's always worth it. Now let me tell you something directly. If you're a working man dealing with a boss who thinks he owns you, who humiliates you because he can, who makes you feel small every day, you don't have to take it. Document everything. Build your evidence, find your allies. The system can work, but only if you make it work. Don't let anyone convince you that keeping your head down and staying quiet is the smart play. It's not. It's just convenient for bullies who count on your silence. You've got rights, you've got dignity, and you've got more power than you think. Use it. Stand up. Fight back. The only thing worse than losing a job is losing your self-respect. Justice served and still burning hot.